Donald Trump actually has facts on his side. I mean, what does Kamala Harris have? Oh, he's just a mean guy. We don't really like him. I think that's kind of played out already a little too much, if you would, right? I think people are over that. And I'm not so sure that she's going to be able to work that when people are dealing with the realities of, yet again, more bad news today on the jobs front. And they had this clown of an economic advisor. He actually runs the National Economic Council there in the Oval Office, who's not even an economist, actually, by background. He's a music major and then got a degree in social work. Jared Bernstein, he went on MSNBC. And I just continue, he, for whatever reason, just constantly is making a fool of himself and then comes back for more. So today, Andrea Mitchell, who, by the way, his husband ran the Federal Reserve, we're talking about Alan Greenspan, she kind of gave him an out. She tried to let him blame the Fed a little bit. Did Jerome Powell leave rates too high, too long? He could have gone there. He didn't because, it's Jared. And, again, he embarrassed himself because he's trying to say that 142,000 jobs being added to the economy is just fine. We'll take it. No, thank you.
Is this cooling off worrying? Is it possible that the Fed went too long in keeping rates high?
Look, I think 142,000 jobs that we got in August, that's demonstrably strong enough to keep the unemployment rate from going up. And in fact, the unemployment rate ticked down from 4.3 to 4.2. No question, that's a slower pace of job gains than we saw, but we were sustaining a breakneck pace that we knew was going to slow down. I think the operative question here, Andrea, is are we generating enough jobs to give people ample opportunities in the labor market to keep the unemployment rate from going up and to especially maintain those solid wage gains that you just mentioned. With wages up about 4% on a year-over-year basis, that's well ahead of inflation, which was last seen at below 3%. So real wage gains, jobs, wages up, unemployment, inflation down. That is the direction of travel, and it's the right one.
Well, that's spin for you, right? 142,000 jobs, let me tell you, that's not great. And then if you look at the revisions from June and July, that's certainly not great. And he's trying to say, we were doing fine because, we were so well padded going into this. Well, you weren't really, because it turns out you totally overestimated by like 800 some odd thousand the number of jobs created in the last year. So Jared, this is not a good track record. And Andrea should have held your feet to the fire on that because she knows better. I mean, assuming she talks about the economy with hubby at home. Alan, he knows better, right? And she gave him the out. She was like, hey, isn't it the Fed's fault? And he's like, no, we're doing fine. This is just fine. I'm telling you, it's not fine. And that is why you're seeing the polls shift the way they're shifting. This is why if any of the Democrats would wake up, they need a plan. And the plan is not to just say, I'm going to hand you this and I'm going to hand you this. First of all, people don't trust it. Just look at what happened on student loans. She promised she was going to forgive everybody's student loans. That didn't go over so well, not with the Supreme Court. I guess she has to actually stack the court, which she intends to do, right, if she were to win the Senate and the House. Whole other scary scenario. But that would be something she would have to do if she was ever going to get those loans forgiven, because it's not happening. It's not actually constitutional what she's trying to do. So people don't believe her. They don't have confidence in her economic plan. And now you get a situation as she goes into this debate of a lousy jobs report. You spin that however you want, Jared. Kamala, I'll be interested to hear your spin. You got a market that's again lower. It's been like the toughest week for the S&P in quite some time. And so this is kind of a layup. It's a layup for Donald Trump. Speaking of the S&P, by the way, this is 76. I'll just show you real quick our income builder portfolio. Top 5 holdings. You can see how much they were up in the last 3 months. Our quarter ending 8/29/24. Median stock return in the portfolio is 15% versus the S&P at 6%. So again, if you get a chance, go over to 76 Research, look at those model portfolios. Use the code word dollar, right? 76research.com. Get the 76 report for $1 a month to start. And, start looking at this stuff, you guys, because the problem we have is that the Fed's going to come in and they're going to cut rates. People are predicting between 25 and 50 basis points, a quarter point to a half a point cut. I expect that they'll be somewhat reticent to do the full half point because that might really freak out markets, right? People will be like, oh my gosh, it's worse than we thought. So I imagine they'll try and come forward with the 25 basis points or a quarter point cut to rates. And, you know, Democrats are going to be really mad. They're going to say, hey, Jerome, you should have done this earlier. Look at the state we're in now. But what you need to care about as an investor, and Rob and I will talk about this a little bit on 76 Research coming up, what you need to care about is what does that mean for asset prices? It could have an inflationary effect, right? That's always a worry. It's one of the reasons why we like gold in these kinds of environments. But it also could have an inflationary effect on asset prices, on equity prices, right, in the stock market. And this is why you see over time, look, those with capital that are investing tend to be rewarded at an exponential rate compared to everyday workers that are out there committing the labor, right? You get it, you know, the factory workers versus the shareholders in the factory. And so this is one way, if you can somehow just try and ease off a little bit, you know, and they have all these free programs nowadays. You know, you go to your bank and they've got free trades that you can do. So it doesn't cost a lot. Just try and even automate it, right? Like say, I'm going to put $10 in every single Friday into the S&P, or $100, whatever you can afford. I think it's important in this kind of environment for sure.